morning. It's Wednesday, February 18th. Thumb Appreciation Day. You mean Thumb Appreciation Day? Oh, Kim, isn't it Ash Wednesday? Yeah, for some people, but everyone can appreciate that thumb appreciation pun. And isn't that alone worth a high holy holiday? Is that joke okay? Nah. The thumb appreciation joke is okay, but I'm saying the other one, I'm going to roll with it. I feel good about the work I've done here. And now, the news. Starting with an update on Monday's Rhode Island ice rink shooting, which left 2 people dead and 3 others injured before the shooter died of what is believed to be a self-inflicted gunshot. As early reports noted, the shooting was motivated by a family dispute, and we now have more details on that dispute and on the shooting. Spoiler alert, the details are awful. We now know that the shooter was 56-year-old Robert Dorgan, who also went by Roberta Dorgana, and that the 2 killed were the shooter's ex-wife and adult son. The 3 injured were the ex-wife's parents, as well as a family friend. All 3 remain in critical condition. On Sunday, the day before the shooting, Dorgan responded to an anti-trans post from Kevin Sorbo, as well as conspiracy theorist Alex Jones, saying that constant criticism of trans folks is, quote, why we go berserk, end quote. Can't wait for the Trump administration to learn all the wrong lessons from this, because this is obviously someone that needed some very clear mental help. They didn't do this specifically because they were trans. They happened to be trans, and their experience led them to be in a place where they clearly needed mental help. But we know that that is not what the Trump administration is going to take from this. Instead, they're just going to make some really dangerous, wild swings in the bad opposite direction, which is their vibe at everything. Meanwhile, between 52 and 50% of mass shooters are white cis-het males, and they're like, well, I think in that case, the only thing there is to give them like a heavier gun. At least 3 bystanders were able to intervene and stop the attack from becoming much worse than it already was. In vaguely related news, an 18-year-old man wearing a tactical vest and gloves and carrying a loaded shotgun and additional rounds was stopped as he ran towards the U.S. Capitol on Tuesday. Capitol Police saw him and ordered him to drop the weapon. He immediately dropped it and was taken into custody without incident. At a press conference, Capitol Police Chief Michael Sullivan noted that he immediately complied, adding, quote, who knows what would have happened if we wouldn't have had officers standing here, end quote. I mean, he had a gun and was running to the Capitol. I think we can guess. Not in a good way, but I think we can guess. A motive is not clear at this time. As a reminder, the government is in a partial shutdown, and both the House and Senate are in no rush to change that fun little fact, so they are both on vacay. And speaking of that partial shutdown, not much to say there. It continues. Senator Schumer sent the Democratic demands late Monday night to the Republicans and to the White House, but the specifics there are unclear. The only thing we really know is, per the White House, in response to Schumer's proposal, quote, the parties are still pretty far apart, end quote. Talk about the understatement of the century. I'm sure Trump's just like itching to get this government working to full capacity ASAP, so I'm sure it's just eaten him alive that everybody's fighting. He famously hates conflict. I'm sure he's so sad. Oh no, why can't we all just be friends? Once again, a stellar impression. In Colorado, high winds causing a brownout, that's where dirt causes low to no visibility, is to blame for a 30-car pileup on I-25 just south of Pueblo Tuesday morning. At least 4 people were killed and 29 others were rushed to local hospitals with a range of injuries. And in Lake Tahoe, California, at least 10 skiers are missing and 6 others were left stranded but eventually rescued after an avalanche on Tuesday. This is a fluid situation. Hopefully by the time you hear this, there will be more answers. but with 3 to 4 inches of snow falling per hour in the area on Tuesday, rescue was very difficult. You guys, where is Nancy Guthrie? On Tuesday, the Guthrie family was officially cleared as suspects by authorities. This does include the brother-in-law, who was an early suspect, though to be clear, that was mostly on social media. The excellent detectives of TikTok were all like, we think it's a brother-in-law, we're going on vibes. The brother-in-law has been cleared. We also learned on Tuesday that the glove found near Nancy Guthrie's home, which does have DNA in it, did not return a match in the National DNA Database. No match! National Database, not a match. Where's Nancy Guthrie? Moving over to television, CBS, which is owned by Skydance, has once again complied in advance. Stephen Colbert, who is in the middle of his final season with The Late Show because he made fun of Trump months ago and also every night since, and Skydance canned him because of that, pre-taped an interview with Texas Senate candidate James Tallarico. Now, the FCC famously has an equal time rule that requires TV and radio stations to give equal airtime to all candidates running for office. The way that I always remember this rule is because in 2003, when Arnold Schwarzenegger was running for governor of California, Conan used to do a bit where he had a cutout of Arnold's face with the lips cut out, and Conan would then talk as if he was Arnold. Absurdly, that counted for airtime, as airtime for Arnold, which meant NBC could then give airtime to his opposition. But then the other problem was that Arnold's obviously famously also an actor, and I think he also probably lifted a couple weights once. Dude looks like he probably benches. Nailed him with that joke. So they wanted to be able to air his movies, but obviously if you were to air, say, Jingle All the Way, then now you've got like 2 hours that you can give to another candidate. So they had to clarify that if you were to air Kindergarten Cop on NBC, NBC did not suddenly have to give 2 hours to a different candidate running against Arnold. A very absurd rule, but this was it. Also, I just want to note that Conan O'Brien has never made a mistake in his life. I'll be taking 0 questions. The bit where he had the cutout of Arnold's head and was doing the talking through it, I think about it all the time because he would just say, Jingle All the Way. I think about it all the time. Now, news coverage is obviously exempt from this rule, and so it was sort of accepted that late night and daytime talk shows fell under that umbrella, and it was accepted for like decades. But the chair of FCC is currently Brendan Carr. He probably has heard of the First Amendment. Can't say he's a big fan of it, that's for sure. He is, however, a big fan of Trump. Why wouldn't he be? Trump appointed him, after all. So now, Carr is saying, quote, if you're fake news, you're not going to qualify for the bona fide news exemption, end quote. He hasn't actually pulled the trigger yet, he has only threatened to. I want to clue you in on the fake news thing. That's how you know that he either is friends with Trump or trying to signal to Trump, buddy, I'm on your side, like me please. And Trump's like, I don't know how to like people outside of myself. It's one of many character defaults that I have. But like I said, FCC has not actually pulled the trigger on this rule. However, Skydance, which owns CBS, is owned by David Ellison. David and his dad. His dad is Larry Ellison. Bummer of a side note here, Larry Ellison's company Oracle just bought the US entity version of TikTok. The Ellisons are friends to the extent that Trump is able to make them with Trump. So do we have all the players here? We've got Brendan Carr, he's the chair of the FCC, he's trying to suck up to Trump. Trump is the president of the United States, impossibly. Let's start there. Let's start with this country, bad, worst possible timeline. Trump's the president. So he made Brendan Carr the chair of the FCC. That's that guy. And then we've got Skydance owned by the Ellisons. Everybody's connected to Trump. Blech. So Skydance owns CBS. CBS told Colbert that they could not air this James Tallarico interview. Instead, it could only be on YouTube because this FCC rule does not apply to streaming yet. Now, you should know that the FCC is already considering an investigation into The View for an equal time violation after their James Tallarico interview. And look, I could do a whole thing about what's going on here. I already started it in this segment, but Stephen Colbert talked about this on Monday night, and he did a very funny job because he drew Snoopy, but he also nailed it when you go watch it to understand why he drew Snoopy, but it was very funny anyway. But he also nailed it when he said this, quote, Donald Trump's administration wants to silence anyone who said anything bad about Trump on TV, because all Trump does is watch TV, end quote. Which is true. That's all he does, is watch TV. That's how he knows that this is happening. He should not know that this is happening, but he's just sitting around watching TV and getting his therapy should be free and mandatory. I'm sorry that your dad never wanted to have a catch and an ice cream with you, but guess what? James Tallarico gets to go on the Colbert Show, you dunce. This is all very serious. We're doing bits because it's serious. That's how I deal with serious things, is I make jokes. Anyway, it's all very serious, and we need to be paying attention to this because Brendan Carr is only out here to keep his job. So he's going to continue to do stuff like this as long as Trump is in office. And we need to be paying attention to it. Additionally, I cannot wait for this administration to be out of office. And also, I cannot wait for the day that all these losers, like Carr, are out of a job. And another day of ending with a very sad ending. On Tuesday, the world lost an absolute giant of the civil rights era after Reverend Jesse Jackson died at age 84. Time makes giants out of people we lose, but there are some people who are giants while they're alive also, and that was Reverend Jesse Jackson. In the 1960s, Jackson founded PUSH, People United to Save Humanity, as one of the earliest efforts to turn economic power into leverage for civil rights. It helped normalize corporate diversity commitments decades before they were common practice. He popularized the Rainbow Coalition, a multiracial, multi-issue political alliance that reshaped how Democrats think about coalition politics and laid the groundwork for progressive organizing. In 1984 and 1988, he ran for president, the first serious black candidate to do so after Shirley Chisholm. He won multiple primaries and forced civil rights, poverty, apartheid, and economic justice into those national debates. And of course, voting. Jackson made voting access and registration central to his work, building the idea that political power is the enforcement mechanism of civil rights, not just a symbolic goal. He led massive voter registration drives, especially in the South, pressed legal challenges to voter suppression, and framed voting as the core civil right after the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. President Biden memorialized him on social media, saying in part, quote, Reverend Jackson influenced generations of Americans and countless elected leaders, including presidents. Reverend Jackson believed in his bones the promise of America, that we are all created equal in the image of God and deserve to be treated equally throughout our lives. While we've never fully lived up to that promise, he dedicated his life to ensuring we never fully walked away from it either, end quote. President Obama said in part, quote, for more than 60 years, Reverend Jackson helped lead some of the most significant moments for change in human history, from organizing boycotts and sit-ins to registering millions of voters to advocating for freedom and democracy around the world. He was relentless in his belief that we are all children of God, deserving of dignity and respect, end quote. And look, yes, legacies are complicated things. People exist in the real world. He was a real person, and pretending he did not also have fallacies diminishes all the good that he did. And he did a lot of good. There are too many quotes to choose from, but this one felt particularly poignant for the moment. Quote, you must not surrender. You may or may not get there, but just know that you're qualified and you hold on and hold out. We must never surrender. America will get better and better. Keep hope alive, keep hope alive, keep hope alive. On tomorrow night and beyond, keep hope alive, end quote. And that's it, that's the news. Hey, today is also cow milked while flying in an airplane day. Yeah, this is real. This is a day to celebrate a cow named Nellie J, later named Elm Farm Ollie, wild swing of a name change, who was the first cow to be flown and milked in an airplane. Yeah, first. Could be more. Could be a lot more. The other ones didn't make the news. It was done to study the effect of height on cows' ability to produce milk. Why do we need to know that? In the 72-mile flight over Bismarck, Missouri, Nellie was milked, and the milk was then put into paper cartons and parachuted down to people watching from the ground. The 1930s were wild. I don't know. Anyway, I'm proud of that cow. She was probably so confused and frankly very annoyed. What a moving story. I guess not really, but still, you gotta thumb-appreciate when people try new things. But more than those puns, because you did not turn off this episode yet, or at the cold open, at the first thumb-appreciation. I'm proud of you.